Good evening and welcome back to Cast Not Dead. After the end of the Killer 7 extravaganza, we're doing something different. This is CJ Okura.
This is Infinite.
This is Quill.
KamenSentai.
So thanks to a group that's... What was that?
It was
Yeah, cool. So there's an infamous group within the Suda51 scene that some of you may know of called Paradise Hotel 51. They've been around for a long time before a lot of the games even were known here, and at the time they were like unparalleled for resources on these games that were like unknown. And then when the games started getting localized, people look back at the site, it was like, wow, a lot of this isn't very accurate, and it kind of became more infamous than famous. But regardless, there's some mistranslation, misinformation, however you want to describe it, a lot of crazy theories and rumors, but still a fascinating read nonetheless. And one of the minds behind Paradise Hotel 51 decided to undertake a playthrough of Moonlight Syndrome, and they have translated the game in its entirety. And there is a translation pending for it, but since the game was coded by Lucifer himself, and it's probably going to take a while, and also the game is very slow and kind of difficult to play through, we decided we're going to talk about it while we observe the playthrough.
Okay, shall we start?
Yep.
We can begin.
Yeah, this. Now I know for me this is absolutely blind. So.
Yeah, this is blind for me too.
I know the cliff notes of the game. So for the unfamiliar, he made this with Human Entertainment long before Grasshopper.
Yeah, this is.
And this was
the second game in the Syndrome, a spin-off, particularly too.
We'll let the intro play. The intro is fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
It's not going to make a lot of sense. Don't worry.
I like one of the taglines of the intro. It was like the court of something.
Oh, a court of the sex dive of generation.
Perfect. It's still that same character designer who go on to work with Silver Kids as well. Takashi Miyoko, right?
And we're getting a brief introduction to all the characters. That's Kumitoba, Arisa Kahara, Sumio Toba, no relation.
Iconic Sumio.
Very familiar looking, but it is not the same Sumio.
And then we also have another character. We have our Flower Sun and Rain character as well.
Ryoko Kazan,
There you
the
go.
orals
The oral
of a court of justice.
Yeah.
Ryoko Kazan, very familiar face if you played Silver Case. And Mithra. What is a grand LSD? When, where, why, what?
What could this symbolize?
And by the way, yes, this is Masafumi Takada, the same composer. It kind of has an early unfinished sound to it, but you can tell it's definitely the same composer.
I think the subtitles are on.
Yeah, this should be on for a little bit.
Mm-hmm. So, for those who aren't familiar, this is basically a sequel to an earlier game in the series called Twilight Syndrome. And I believe there are two Twilight Syndrome games, Investigation and
Search, I think.
And they were just straightforward murder mystery games. You know, investigate, solve the murder, everyone's happily ever after. And I guess either games weren't doing too hot or they just didn't have a whole lot left to do, and one of their up-and-coming programmers was like, hey, you want to direct it? And they're like, he's like, okay, I guess. And yeah, they handed him the reins, and the rest is history.
If I remember the story correctly for Twilight Syndrome, it was mostly the director finished pretty much everything, and then he just quit near the end, and then Suda came in and filled the end of it.
Yeah,
nice.
It wasn't really murder mystery; it's more like ghost stories, but half the ghost. Wait, is the subtitles not on? Oh, there you go.
My bad.
Half the story, or half the ghost stories in Twilight Syndrome were mostly just like following ghost story, and then it turns out to be fake. That's what I recall. I have not played much of it, to be honest.
That
From
is
what I
pretty
understand,
Twilight
they're
Syndrome.
simple occult stories. They're fun, but nothing really, groundbreaking.
Yeah,
From what I
but I don't think this is a sequel. I think this is more like a
Yeah, this is a spin-off.
reboot spin-off of sorts.
and it has I don't think she's the main character, but she's in them.
No, the three main characters are here. It's just that they're pretty much lore-wise is kind of different.
Also, I gotta say this right off the bat. I know this is gonna be usual Sean here, but it's kind of picture here. I'm really getting some like early Showa era Ultraman vibes here, particularly from a certain director, Ishiho Isake. I always forget his name. It's such a weird name to say. But essentially, he's a very veteran director in this franchise. He has a lot of zoom-in shots, lights in the background, stuff like that. It just comes up with that similar vibe. Which again,
So as you can tell, Mika is she's like a high school student, but she also likes to solve crimes and investigate mysteries. And she's very outspoken. She's basically telling this old man to go walk off a short pier.
This old man just like, for me, he just gives me like G-Man vibes from Half-Life.
Yeah, I think he's like kind of the, I don't want to say narrator, but I believe he's kind of like the like a consistent figure throughout the games. Like he's kind of like an omniscient person who observes, like a watcher, I guess, if you will.
An observer, in a way.
Mm-hmm. He carries that suitcase. What's in that suitcase?
hopefully nothing too bad.
So in the original version, any spoken dialogue has no subtitles. So a prospective fan translation is probably going to have to code subtitles into it.
I will say the narration also kind of gives like that kind of Twilight Zone kind of vibes.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, and by the way, this is a game to play with some good headphones because you can probably notice it has really good audio.
Yeah.
Again,
which is really impressive. I know PS1 uses like CD-based stuff, but they only had like 700 megabytes of space. So the fact that they managed to put all of these in, plus high quality
I believe
audio,
it uses binaural audio, which is like when it has that audio where it sounds like it's coming from behind you and to the side.
Like, is it a 2-disc game or is it just a 1-disc game? I don't have my copy with me. It's back in my home country.
I believe it is 2 discs.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 2 discs.
Yeah, because it's impossible to fit all these FMVs and all these.
Oh yeah, that takes up. The game does have quite a few FMVs with full voice acting.
Yeah.
Especially for human entertainment, when you think about it, not the big.
So I don't know what a Julieta Games signifies. I think that was like something he used early on.
Oh, it's like a pen name?
I think so.
Wow.
And that whisper definitely uses the binaural audio. Like you'll hear it from behind you, like Kishi-san. There, you can tell. Like Suda was probably big influenced by J-horror when he made this, so it kind of has that vibe, I think.
Yeah. My comment about like sort of like a Twilight Zone kind of thing probably also kind of means Ultra Q, which was the beginning of the Ultra franchise, had a weird sci-fi and paranormal aspects as well. Definitely spawn a lot of the famous stuff in the franchise, and they still do come back up even in the franchise itself of current Ultraman even.
By the by, that's her apartment building, and it is really cool.
Oh yeah, that's always been a thing. Suda and housing kind of looks. He always has very interesting things with that. Because I know one thing, Suda in real life, he hates Japanese apartment complexes and crap like that.
Yeah, they're very like 25th Ward. They're very isolationist and plain. Like you're just part of the machine.
Yeah, Suda absolutely hates that kind of stuff. He likes which I mean, yeah. it's no surprise this man loves his personalization and standing out.
Yeah, well, sadly, that's the future because, like, I'm seeing these new apartment buildings built everywhere, and they all look very samey. They've got like convenience stores in the first floor, and like you can just live there and never leave. That seems to be what they're going for.
Meanwhile, in America,
That's
it's
the
all
first
about DoorDash.
convenience stores in an apartment building.
Yeah, that's a new thing in Florida. There's a couple that have been building Dania Beach that have convenience stores in the ground floor and everything there. So why leave? This is Aramata, by the way, the man with the hat. He's an occult investigator.
I can already tell this is like hell to translate.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's a very dense script.
No, specifically the parts where there's no text.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But Police Knots managed it. You know, because I believe the original version of Police Knots had no subtitles, so it's doable, but it's a pain, to quote Mika here.
So we should probably get this out of the way since there's so very like heavy prologue stuff. Like the whole Moonlight Syndrome controversial stuff that everyone thought were getting remasters of these games and stuff like that, and Suda shooting it down.
Well, yeah, I think it's two things. One, Suda says he's not very proud of his writing. He thinks the writing in this is damn great. And I kind of disagree. I think it's still very well written, but I can see why he thinks that.
It is his like first work by himself in charge. Like,
yeah, he's kind of embarrassed to look back at it, I think.
And on top of that, there's very controversial topics in this game, which, yeah, I can't blame him on that. Even I know those little bits.
Apparently, like, real killings that happened at the time like, inspired some of the story.
Oh, really?
And there's also very touchy subject matters, too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, boy, yeah. Then again, I mean, Killer 7 still got some pretty wild stuff in it, too. So.
Yeah, but Killer 7 compared to this is just nothing, to be honest.
Yeah. I think that some of the stuff in this is worse than Killer 7, to be perfectly honest.
I mean, like with Killer 7, you could say that like the worst parts were technically in one chapter.
Yeah, usually the stuff with Pedro and the tennis room.
But at the same time, I think that's why Suda feels more embarrassed. He probably, because he was starting out, so he just thought like, I just gotta do it, just do whatever comes to my mind and stuff like that. He took the little punk mentality a little too strong.
But the thing is, I mean, people are messed up. Things like this happen in real life. So in a weird sort of way, it makes it feel more real. Because
I mean, yeah, it's very much sort of like how Silver Case had those kind of very like moments of like, oof, like that person went a little radical there.
Yeah.
Like when Shizuru is trying to seduce you at the last chapter.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that was uncomfortable as all heck.
Yeah. But 25th Ward's writing, it kind of felt a little off kilter. Like, did he have someone help him write it and he didn't do it all himself like he did Silver Case?
No, he did the main part by himself, but the Tokyo chapter was by the Tokyo writer, and the other one.
Placebo's writer came back.
Yeah, Placebo's from the Tokyo writer, and the other chapter is from another person. So every chapter pretty much is like a different writing person. And the thing with 25th Ward, the reason that like the main chapter felt so insane and crazy is because when it was like on phones, people would sort of vote to what they wanted to see next in the next chapter. So that's why like in chapter 3 it immediately went insane.
Mm-hmm. By the by, I believe he's summarizing the events that happened in the previous Twilight Syndrome games with these screenshots.
No, this is starting to make me think of freaking Parade in Silver Case.
Oh yeah, you can definitely see the early glimmers of him doing multimedia. Like, you got the hard CG and then the black and white artwork.
Girl at the tree.
Did the same artist work on Moonlight Syndrome?
I feel like it looks like, as I'm saying, it looks like Takashi Miyamoto. It does look like it's designed.
I could
in
see it. You remember, he did say he wanted to redraw it for 25th War because he didn't like how amateurish it looked. I believe that.
In the manual of Moonlight Syndrome, you can definitely see some Takashi Miyamoto art.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe this was kind of his first venture too, because I definitely am pretty certain Twilight Syndrome art was very different.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, like this is like Suda's core team.
But yeah, and
Also,
just,
the voice acting is really good, by the way.
yeah, Japan was always so more serious and stuff about these kind of voice acting and such in their media compared to
Absolutely.
America, where they were
Yeah,
just
you can
like,
take the lowest, the most zero, no budget game in Japan will somehow still have immaculate voice acting.
I mean, to be fair, like when games get localized in the U.S., most Japanese people who are in charge of the game, they can't really tell what's good English voice acting at the time. That's
yeah,
why we
there's
got
that. But even then,
masterpieces like Resident Evil.
Even then, America just in some of their actual like, let's say, homemade projects, like especially like let's say 70s or 80s with animation, the voice acting wasn't the best in some areas too.
Yeah, but I'd say like at least at that, it was a little bit better than.
Yeah, localizing. It definitely was. But, and we still kind of have a situation now these days where, you know, when we have anything animated or stuff like that, you still gotta just shove a celebrity on it.
Another tough sell for this game among Suda's audience, like I'm sure they're used to the visual novel aspects, like that's in Travis Strikes Again, but this game is a lot of walk and talk, even especially for Suda.
Sir? What are we talking about now?
Yeah, he literally means that. Although I think in this sense he means he's a pervert in that, like he's into weird things, not so much the traditional pervert. Although I could be wrong.
A pervert's a pervert in the end, and he's saying that to a schoolgirl, so.
Yeah, I guess that could be construed a few ways.
I'm like 30% paying attention to what's written due to the fact that like I have to focus on what you guys are saying, I have to focus on talking, and it's also midnight.
Basically, in a nutshell, he's saying that like, hey, weird shit happened. You've been involved all this time. More weird shit's gonna happen, and you're gonna be involved. Good luck.
It's kind of funny how like ambiguous it is to talking about these past events, which funny enough, it's kind of how like No More Heroes 3 kind of does things when it like it has old characters pop up. It's very quick to the point, and well, this one ain't quick to the point, but you know what I mean. It's not, you know, it's not straight up laying it out for us. Like,
Yeah, well, like, you know, Killer 7 would have, you know, those whole ton of things would happen, and in a couple lines, it's over. This is a little more willing to flesh it out. It's like I'd say this is more 20 Silver Case than Killer 7, definitely.
Oh no, definitely. Like Silver Case and 25th Ward, anything that's like text more than gameplay.
So basically, he's saying like, I'm the Watcher here. I can observe, I'll report, but I cannot help you. But there's one thing he can do for her. He's your save point.
talking like you gotta make stuff more useful.
Yeah, like he saves your game. That's pretty much the main service he provides you, if I recall.
There's only one ending to the game, right?
Yes.
And that's the infamous ending. The violence Jack mentioned, if I'm correct.
It's cool that they give you like lots of choices, but that's what I hate.
Yeah,
as well.
I tried the choices out when I was playing the first chapter, and it's very much, but thou must. But thou must. It doesn't.
Yeah. Kind of wish they did not give us that choice. I was like, I did play the game without like English stuff, so it was kind of like tough going through the entirety of it. It was great.
Yeah,
it was beautiful, but I was just like, I don't know. If it was the same end goal.
Suda probably bit too much he can chew, especially considering FMVs and stuff like that. They couldn't just jam so much and also code all those different paths, especially on old PS1.
Yeah. Well, with this, basically, all you had to do is have one portrait and all the words you want. With Silver Case, he innovated with the film window system.
On top of that, another interesting comment I remember Suda had about Moonlight Syndrome recently was he likes to call this game destruction media.
Maybe he means like he's deconstructing tropes.
I think he was particularly talking about the previous game Twilight Syndrome in relation to this. He's saying he kind of destroyed Twilight Syndrome with this game.
Oh yeah, as I know, some
he did
fans
say that.
were not happy with how this ended, for obvious reasons.
Which, it's very interesting because he was mostly talking about this recently because of No More Heroes 3, which I'm like, yeah, I guess he kind of went back to that kind of mindset for that game. To destroy something.
Now, I will say, if you just have the text boxes translated, you'll get like probably 70% of the story. But there are long stretches of voice acting where you can probably figure it out, but not quite the same.
Nah, I don't. For me, I could not like understand a single thing.
Yeah, and again, to be frank, the game's not very fun to play. Like, I spent a lot of time wandering around, trying to figure out who to talk to, how to advance the plot. It's very much a Japanese adventure game from the 90s, warts and all.
And that kind of definitely stuck with Suda for a good long while too, because it kind of reminds me of people complaining about Blood when they played the Blood Plus game, especially when you don't know Japanese.
Also, it does have pretty cool model work, and I like the 3D models are used to very good effect.
Oh yeah, another thing
And
I
we
mentioned about this whole layout of things, especially how where the character models are, like kind of this, like right here. That's very much what TSA did with Coffee and Donut.
I think it's used sparingly, but it's used to cool effect, like close up and watch. You hear how loud the sound effects are. It's really effective, I think. It's deliberate. You'll have this quiet room and then loud.
When we're gonna have the little shit kid pop up.
Oh yeah, that bastard.
Yeah,
That's an apartment building. Yeah.
I really wish this would be like remade, but with like even higher quality audio.
Like, look at the elevators. This is like Bubblegum Crisis.
Yeah, this is some weird 90s gift here. Oddly enough, kind of reminds me of this one Ultra 7 episode with the city underground.
And like, you see how bland the buildings are. It's very 25th Ward. Heck, even the apartment building I live in, they have something like you can't have doormats out front. They regulate what you can and can't put outside. You have plants that are too far out.
Dude,
which reminds me,
my fucking apartment building, I swear to God, it's 1 by 1. You can barely fit anything in. Just a bed, a desk,
Really?
and
Is that New York?
closed door. It sucks ass, but like,
It's life.
It's life. I'm not gonna complain. I have a roof over my head, especially in the Netherlands where it rains every 2 seconds. This is like heaven.
Hey, you got everything in one place. Sometimes that's enough.
Yeah.
Especially if you don't have to worry about sharing space with anybody.
I kind of do actually, because like the bathroom is shared.
That's fine. Well, you can see the room is. Well, it's kind of got a pink look, but it's overall very plain.
Yeah, you could get a little. She could get a little away with like in the room itself.
Although I remember there was a really cool documentary, like interview, or not documentary, but like a blog post about Silver Case, where they talked about recreating the rooms and how they. And Suda was very particular. He wanted them to be plain and bland. Like they said they were going to add more stuff, and Suda was like, "No, don't add more stuff. The room's supposed to be plain. It's supposed to be empty."
Also,
it was very deliberate.
The context of this mother character going like, I'll be ready in a moment, dinner's ready, I'm in this kitchen, you probably never be access because they didn't give me a 3D model.
And tell the retro phone. We all remember those.
Oh, history of like keeping the more older cell phones.
Yeah, they're nostalgic there for good reason.
They also really love the flip phones. I bet today you can find tons of flip phones. Way more than America.
I believe this is Rio calling her. I could be wrong.
Yeah, it sounds like, since these two were together, if I was correct.
By the way, the game sort of has two protagonists, if I recall. You mostly play as Mika, but there are parts where you play as Rio Kazan. Is Mika ever say anything, or is she never voice acted? I don't think she is.
She's not voice acted. I think she might be voice acted if you're playing as Rio.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those.
That's a cool touch. I like how they do that. Because you're playing as yourself, so yeah.
Yeah, it's like Persona, pretty much. Persona 2.
Like she changed, so now she's wearing her casual outfit.
It's very interesting with Persona games when the original protagonist is then just a normal character, and now I speak. Really happened to you in the Persona 4 Arena series as well.
And you notice the house is a 3D model, very subtle, but it does move around.
And this is making me think, especially since this is human entertainment, this is making me think now of like Clock Tower.
Oh yeah, you can definitely see the similarities there.
I really need.
Except you don't have a big scissor man chasing you around.
Yeah, I need to play Clock Tower because there was a time where I used to be scared shitless of everything, but now I'm like desensitized to horror stuff, so I can actually like play and beat Clock Tower.
Also, to be honest, Clock Tower. Wow, this is a very familiar location.
Yeah, this is very familiar. Well, what could it be?
You can see I love the audio. Kusabi's cars is coming as we speak.
And like, I could see that a remake would probably replace this with like 2D art, but the 3D models really add something to it, like how they look soulless. Like the Uncanny Valley effect works to the game's benefit, I think.
Yeah, if they ever remake this game, I just hope that they make it like. I don't want them to have like realistic graphics and all that stuff. Just like make it uncomfortable.
Yeah, and it should be like they're simple models, but they're very evocative. Sound effect design is so good in this game.
My little spine crawling.
Yeah, this game is great at creeping dread. I think you can make a solid case. This is definitely the scariest game he's ever made.
Suda?
Oh yeah, definitely. And that includes Fatal Frame 4, which I've heard isn't even that good, sadly.
Frame 4 is interesting because the stuff that Suda did for it got destroyed, and then the guy felt bad about it, so he tried to recreate it to his memory.
Yeah, like, you don't hire Suda51 and latch him down. No.
It really felt like they just let him be, and then they just saw what happened, and the guy was like, what the hell is this? And then he just had a moment of rage, and he's like, no, oh my god. He's like, why did I do that?
It's like, I mean, you hire Picasso, don't be surprised if you're going to get a bunch of triangles and funky colors. That's what you signed up for.
Could have been worse. Could have been what EA did.
But at least I hear that it's mostly intact. It's just, I hear it's a good game. It's just not very Fatal Frame-ish. Like, it's very unlike Fatal Frame.
It's the only Fatal Frame game I played. I don't know anything about Fatal
I've played 1 and 2. 1 and 2 are fantastic. And I played part of 3.
I have seen them on an outside perspective, and at most played Maiden of Black Water, at least most of its demo. So, yeah, I'm not the biggest expert.
Well, Fatal Frame 3 is like the Silent Hill 4 of the room, because you go in the real world, and when you go to sleep, you wake up in the Fatal Frame world, and you're in this empty, soulless house during the day, which is somehow just as creepy as the ghost world.
I gotta say, that's kind of bringing up horror with Suda. That's a funny situation because mostly, from what I know, Suda actually does not like horror. He's actually
Ironically.
he's easily gets afraid of things. Which, yeah, the ironic part is particular people, like again the Fatal Frame people, went like, "Yo, like you do good work, Suda. Like Killer 7, like that was horrifying and stuff like that. We want you to do something for us."
Yeah, so I think he's a guy who like does horror good in small doses and doesn't really intend to. So when you give him a game that's supposed to be all horror, he's kind of like, "Wow, I'm not supposed to do with a whole game full of horror."
Didn't
I
And
think
on
didn't the
top of
same
that,
thing happen to Kojima? Like, was watching a horror movie and he couldn't look at the box, so he hid it somewhere because he was so scared of it.
Oh wow, that happened to me a lot in high school. Like when the video game section in Videotape Town was after the horror section, and I didn't want to look at the covers, so I would cover my eyes as I walked past.
yeah, it's the same thing as a kid in video stores.
So I can relate to that.
I was afraid of even the dumbest ones, like even like the like weird Thanksgiving horror movies.
I've
or
only-
Ginger Dead Man.
I've only been scared of one video game cover, but that was because I had a nightmare of that video game, and it was I was like 6, 7 at the time, and it was Disney's Extreme Skate Adventure.
Wow.
I had a nightmare about it, and then every time I'd see the cover, I just instantly remember the nightmare, and I would end up crying. I did that for like a
Is it
year.
like Tony Hawk with Mickey Mouse's head?
No, it is literally just a reskin of Tony Hawk Pro Skater 4. It was made by the same developers. It's.
But I mean, in your nightmares, you have Tony Hawk chasing you on a skateboard with Mickey Mouse's head.
No, the dream was I was playing like. I don't remember which character I was playing as, but I remember Zurg from Toy Story came in, and then like he turned me into a robot, and then I woke up in like cold sweat. I was so scared for whatever reason.
There's some interesting catfighting going on here. Gossip about a girl who died in an accident, and one of them doesn't like that they're talking smack about the dead, if I recall.
Then back to that horror subject, person that Suda actually still kind of is good friends with, and actually is got to be working on something apparently soon. Keiichiro Toyama. Apparently, his inspiration for the Siren series was the Silver Case.
Interesting.
Which again, it's like Suda somehow touched 2 horror franchises and he hates it. But his wife loves horror.
Funny about that. It's probably part of the influence. I wonder how long they've been together. Like, was she around during the Syndrome days?
Oh yeah, no, yeah. Suda has talked about when he was first becoming a video game developer, and she was the one that pushed him to do it. It's like, no, go do it. Like you clearly have a passion for it if you want to do it, right?
Oh, fun fact that the fan translator who I was working with on Syndrome, he translated this line as saying he had one of the girls call the other girl, and I quote, a cunt, because he said she's using very vulgar Japanese, and thought that was the most appropriate word. And I was like, that sounds fine by me, because girls do call each other that, sadly.
So they're still in school. And one thing I know about Showa era tokusatsu, kids are evil.
Yeah, and even modern day, I assure you.
Yeah, no, I mean,
Oh,
to be fair, I used to also say cunt a lot as a kid, like even in like middle school. So
I never said it, but I heard it a lot.
It also kind of reminds me of like, of kids being crap and stuff like that. Have you seen this? Have you seen this recently? Some guy was like watching Evangelion as he watched, and he was absolutely hating it, and it just sounded like the usual American take of like man, this
guy
kid's
on
in a
Twitter?
giant robe. Yeah.
yeah,
It just reminds me of that because I love how he's complaining about like, oh, this kid's all mopey and stuff like
he
that.
missed
It's like, I wouldn't be.
like. I'm pretty sure he did not watch the show. He missed the entire point of everything.
Well, he also
Get the damn robot, Shinji.
and he also comments about like, why are the kids so like mean to him and stuff like that? Like this guy's a hero, stuff like that. I'm going like, dude, that's why he's making that.
So they're gossiping about Rumi's older brother who's going out with Kyoko Kazan, and Mika's like, "Ew," not wanting to touch that subject.
Yeah, this is where we kind of get on to this stuff.
Yeah, we're getting a little like alarm bells are ringing, Turkish.
Yeah, and again, this is probably one of the things Suda feels a little embarrassed about for sure. Because again,
that's what makes them interesting characters.
Yeah.
They're weird and crazy, but
that's what I love. Like, that's what I really love when games do that. Is like make characters that are genuinely fucked up to the point where like you don't know how you can even like that person, even if they're the protagonist. Just like how in Drakengard, like the nicest and probably arguably the best person in that game is just a fucking pedophile.
yeah, there's always
he's
those
he's sadly the least crazy person in the cast, but
Yeah.
he's still fucking nutcase.
Meanwhile, like spoiler alert for Drakengard, you might want to like close your ears for a few minutes because I love Drakengard, but I cannot stop talking about how fucked up it is. Like, the main character fucks a dragon. One of your party members is a pedophile. The other party member eats babies because she can't have a baby. Another, well, not a party member, but your sister is in love with you.
Yeah, it feels like it's like Yoko Taro and Suda51 would probably get along swimmingly.
Yeah.
But like, much like Suda51, I think Yoko Taro's works have gotten less weird over the years. Like, that's why I think it's funny Automata is so popular, because I'm like, nothing in Automata is really that special, especially not compared to Drakengard or even Drakengard 3.
Yeah, no, the thing, like, I think Nier in itself isn't weird. Nier is just depressing. It's sad. It hurts.
The original Nier has some really well written characters. I love Nier, but and I don't think there's anything as wild and crazy as in any of the Drakengard games.
Yeah, obviously. No, the reason I love Drakengard is just because of how fucked up the stories and the characters are, but, like, Nier itself is an actual story with, like, non-fucked up characters. I mean, there are some fucked up characters, and in the original Nier, there is some fucked up stuff, but that's not in the game itself. You kind of have to either listen to the
the Grimoire Nier has, which the backstory of it ties into Drakengard, the ending where you shoot down the dragon over Tokyo, and it turns out in the Nier backstory that pretty much it's like you brought magic from another world into modern day society, and it really does not mesh well.
Salt. Lots of
Yes.
salt.
Or the reason why...
Chlorination syndrome. It turns people into salt.
Or the reason why young Nier ties his hair back. Or anything with Kaine. It's just sad. Everything is... Like, you could say that the saddest character in gaming is just Emil, due to the fact that he's, like, immortal. And everyone he loves is gonna
But he's also the most cheerful, happy-go-lucky guy in the game.
Yeah, but like you can tell that his happiness is just like a coping mechanism for suffering.
Absolutely.
And when you talk about this, definitely, I remember how Yoko Taro based the original Nier. He thought about the events of 9/11. Which
Was that Yoko Taro?
Yoko Taro? Yeah.
No, there's another guy who based. Oh no, sorry, that was Killer 7 and Suda. I mean, to be fair, lots of things were inspired by 9/11.
I mean, like it's some tragedy stuff like that. Definitely have. Well, Japan definitely has experience in that, considering the Hiroshima bombing, which spawned a lot of media. I mean, a lot. Like, not only Godzilla, but like animated films like Grave of the Fireflies.
Grave of the Fireflies, and that one. What was that anime again? Where like, it was literally just about the Hiroshima bombing, where.
Oh yeah.
Where when the bomb drops, it's just highly detailed gore.
Yeah, because those events were truly horrifying, and they didn't want to cower away from that. They want people to remember to prevent repeating those same mistakes.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of Come and See, if you ever heard of that movie. It's like they were saying, I'm not sure we can make this movie. And one of the other writers was like, we can't afford not to make this movie.
There was a guy who was like, he managed to survive both Hiroshima and Nagasaki at the same time. Like,
wow.
he's unlucky and lucky at the same time. He was at Hiroshima because of his job, and then the bomb landed, and then like he went back to his hometown in Nagasaki to get like healed and stuff. And after almost finishing, Nagasaki got bombed as well, and he survived both.
Wow. You think one would have been enough, honestly. You think after that anybody would surrender. Sadly.
Wasn't it like they were gonna surrender, but then the U.S. rushed Nagasaki? I have.
Essentially, what happened was it was near the end of the war, and America, like even a lot of the American side didn't even want to do this, but it was a case of I think someone I forget a lot of details, but it was a case. It was like just like they just had a feeling there was got to be another kind of like suicide mission coming from Japan, so they essentially mostly use this as a hey, you gotta stop now completely.
Yeah,
America
it almost
was,
feels kind of like when they say double tapping, like they had to make absolutely sure. Sadly.
and and again, when that all happened, America was still a major part of the recovery and stuff like that. And because as how cruel that was, like at the very least, the ones that did it went to the destruction and helped to build everything back. At least there is that good news there.
Mm.
At the very least.
Not like the Vietnam one where they started it and then they lost it instantly.
So that guy, I'm not sure if that guy's important. The one who just walked by.
Nah, I think it's just like a resonant to like add more
kind of
believability or realism or whatever.
And also, it's very accurate Japanese culture. The people are very insular. They don't talk to you. They just go about their business.
I mean, yeah, let's look at that. Like, there he is.
Here we go. So, Killer 7 fan, if you've ever wondered who that creepy freaking kid with the deep voice is in that one animated cutscene.
Oh,
actually, we
that is a really ugly render of him.
Should we? We shouldn't say much about the kid, actually, should we?
He has a Squidward nose.
We'll say that he appears in Killer 7. Is that a good suffice it to say?
Yeah, and pretty much this is a lot of the core inspiration for Kamui.
Yes, and if I recall, this is the only character from Syndrome who appears in Killer 7.
Yep, because, you know what happens to the rest.
Top of that, I 100% guarantee you that kid was inspired by the Ultraman franchise. No, I am not gonna back down from that because there are so many evil kids, like or aliens that disguise themselves as kids.
So wow, is it like Kamino with girls and Gundam? Like whoever wrote it has an axe to grind against kids?
Maybe. Especially the one episode in Return of Ultraman where the alien was disguised as a kid and talking telepathically to the main hero to get him aggravated and stuff. When he like revealed himself accidentally, the commander of the attack squad or defense squad, he retaliates fast, shoots immediately. The alien is still in the kid disguise, so you see a kid holding his throat bleeding out. I'm just like, wow, my lord!
Don't hold anything back. As you can see, here's Mika's mother and Mika's father, and she's the only one who's not voice acted. So it was at this point when I played it, I was like, wow, this is not going to be an easy fan translation. So we either have to figure out the subtitles or dub it. And that was not realistic.
I mean, you could probably find some, like, passionate fans who are down to...
Well, I'm sure, but, like, this is pretty mid to top shelf dub work. It's very solid. So, like, this is the kind of thing where if you're going to dub it, you better at least make it at least as good, if not better. Or else don't bother.
Yeah, maybe like we can do something for that.
And also, it has that very like air specific. Everyone talks in this very slow, methodical way. Like, well, dear, there are a lot of children in the building. Like very off kilter way of speaking.
I mean,
isn't it?
Thinking about it, like
making sure things are said properly and at a good pace.
You notice how the voice actors talk very slowly and methodically? So da ne. Ne. Like they draw out their words. It's very specific.
What you gotta wonder, why did they put subtitles for everyone at that point?
Yeah, it kind of feels like a Boku no Yatsumi, or I believe that's what it's called, the game about summer vacation. Oh, this part is interesting.
今日午
Great
後
music
10時頃トラックとバイクが正面衝突した後トラックはガードレールに激突道を塞いだトラックに4台の乗用車が衝突死者1名7人が重軽傷を負いました
現場に石井レポーターが飛んでおります石井さんお願いいたします
はい、こちらは霊月峠の検討です。警察の発表によりますとトラックを運転していた会社員の吉田隆
I'm pretty sure a lot of things happen. I can definitely tell you that.
しました。現場はトラックと4台の乗用車からガソリンが漏れ炎上。一時は森に引火する恐れもありましたが、現在は鎮静化に向かっております。
Yeah, that fire is taking a lot of processing power.
Kyoko Kazan.
火山京子さん18歳がトラックに巻き込まれ死亡いたしました。飲酒運転が原因とみられるトラックが対向車線に進入し、京子さんの運転するバイク
Gee, doesn't that little boy look familiar?
使ったとみられます。トラックとバイクの衝突後、乗用車4台、玉突きで死者1名、重軽傷者7名を負った事故は飲酒運転が原因とみられております。以上、現場からお伝えいたしました。
You know what that reminds me of? Parasite Eve.
Yeah,
It's been a while since I played that.
especially
It gives me a Paris, especially this old CG with the creepy music. There's some gorgeous artwork, as we can see here.
It's so simple, but
See, it
it's
looks like
beautiful.
Miyamoto. That's not.
Miyamoto, yeah. Ooh.
That's
And
definitely
yeah, that's it for part 1.
More web
well,
stories.
prologue.
Game theory.
Best of Irish
gameplays.
stories. There are
Let's
some
play
more
it.
Oni plays.
The One Piece OST, Moulin Rouge. So yeah, that is the prologue of Moonlight Syndrome. Basically, just lots and lots and lots of setup. So we know there's
Oh,
an
lot of
accident.
photos.
Yeah.
Shit kid. Never
He's
trust you.
conveniently at the accident that killed upwards of 4 people. Yeah, bitchy high school girlers gossiping about each other. One girl is at the center of it all, and a creepy old man who says he's going to do nothing but help her save her game.
And there was a suicide, apparently.
Ah, yes. Yes, and Kyoko Kazan was the one involved, and she's mysteriously dead as well. Oh, yes, and they were gossiping about the one girl who killed herself during this scene in the classroom.
Yeah.
Which is also reminiscent of Serial Experiments Lane.
I've been hearing a lot about Lane lately. Apparently, a lot of Suda fans kind of gravitate towards it.
It's
I
great.
can see why.
It's great.
You've never seen Lane?
I have not yet, no.
Okay, that's something we will have to
never
correct.
seen it.
There's a lot of things I am getting down with right now, and hey, I got done with the Showa era Ultraman, like I include Mebius with that because it's back to the original universe. That is like nearly 8 to 9 there. It's like, hey, I'm glad I'm done.
The good thing about Lane is short. It's only 13 episodes, and it's tight. All killer, no filler.
I'm not surprised. Anime like that was probably a seasonal thing kind of thing.
So that is the beginning of the Moonlight Syndrome tale.
Now, should we continue to at least long chapter 1 is?
We can see how long is chapter 1.
This
Chapter
isn't
1.
this chapter. No, this is prologue.
This is chapter 1.
This is considered the prologue. Chapter 1 is the title of chapter 1 is prologue.
Okay.
There's chapter 2 in the upper right. I see it's the first one with
It's not 12 minutes.
that's with Michi.
Is it 12 minutes or 17
No.
minutes? 12?
Yeah, it's
No, in the
12 minutes.
I have a playlist open. The next video is like an hour.
Yeah, no. Good night,
Okay,
everyone.
no.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so we can call it on that one, and then we'll start with chapter 2 on the next one.
Yep.
So, yeah.
And I will say this before we start heading out, something I wanted to bring up kind of for when we were talking about a lot of the realistic characters and tragedy kind of stuff. Especially considering like how certain writers just had a lot of that edge and making characters very disturbing or quote unquote realistic in that vein. It reminds me very much, especially since it's 1997. This is a year right after a certain show called Changerion, where it was a tokusatsu, but it very much displayed characters. If like let's say a real person, quote unquote, was actually the main hero, like what would happen? You get this flirty playboy who doesn't take this seriously. Like what's going to happen? Kind of mentality.
Sounds like Rolling Bomber Special. You've seen Rolling Bomber Special, I hope.
I have not now.
Okay, that like if you can spare, we'll do it. If after the stream's over, if you want, if you can spare 10 minutes, I will show you Rolling Bomber Special. You have to see it.
Oh, okay, I thought it was like a whole movie. Yeah, I can do that.
Oh no, it's a short. It's an incredible short.
Yeah, no, like, and particularly that writer Tokishio Inoue would keep doing that even for like the main franchises later on. He would very much have these very disturbing characters and very much moments of you just understanding why they're like that and such.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't be surprised if Suda's a big fan of his work because, I mean, Suda talked a lot about Zi-O and stuff like that, and Inoue ended up writing a couple of episodes for Zi-O and Kamen Decade even, which, again, Suda reference as hard as you possibly can in Travis Strikes Again. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's a big fan of this man. Because they have a very similar style of, like, displaying characters in, like, very quote-unquote realistic methods.
Absolutely. So we'll call it on this one, and then hopefully within a couple weeks' time, we'll resume with Chapter 2 of the Syndrome. Probably about, I think this will probably be fit. I would guesstimate probably 10 to 11 episodes or thereabouts, because each one's about an hour long.
Roughly 10 episodes, yeah.
This is the shortest one, probably, because prologue.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So this seems like a slow burn. Don't worry, the train's about to leave the station very, very fast.
Wasn't a train that left the station, it was a truck and a motorcycle that collided.
Exactly. So this has been the prologue of Moonlight Syndrome. This has been CJ Wakura.
This has been Infinite.
This has been Quill.
And KamenSentai.
Remember, the cat's not dead, and neither are cats.